everyone? Welcome to another episode of Cryptocurrent. Your host here, Richard Carthon. And today I have a special guest who's also out here in the ATX with me. Actually, I met one of the people on the team who highly recommended. I was like, hey, you need to come talk to our founder. And so I was like, bet, let's do it. So today we have Garrett Peat with Energy Ledger. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you doing today, Richard?
Man, I'm fantastic. I'm excited to learn more about what y'all got going on. It's very needed in this industry, and I think it has a ton of opportunity, and that's why I want to unpack this a little bit more with you. But before we do that, I want to learn more about you. Can you give us some background on yourself?
Sure. So, I'm a tech enthusiast. I've been doing stuff with technology since I was probably 8 or 9 years old, building little Lego robots. I won a science fair, and I had an asteroid named after me by NASA. And then shortly after that, I started to get into coding and building websites. And then crypto kind of came naturally, in my later years of high school, I think around 2013. And then after, I had the privilege of being one of the founding members of the Bitcoin Center in New York City. And we just opened up a new location there, which, the Energy Ledger team did help out with. It's 2307 Broadway. If you're ever in NYC, you should go check it out. So.
Definitely. And shout out to Federico who'll put this on. I think he was up there recently, was checking that out, was telling me about it.
He was up there with me. Yeah, we got it all, prim and proper for them to do Satoshi Square, which is kind of a long running event for, live trading of Bitcoin. So,
man, that's incredible. That's really cool. I mean, as you keep building that up, like what first got you into crypto? Like how'd you first learn about it and what, piqued your interest?
Well, a friend of mine kind of told me, and it was really very early on. I think it was probably like 2012. He told me about it, and he basically said the way he described it was this is the way that all money moved through the internet. It was kind of the behind the scenes for money. And while that wasn't right at the time, it ended up becoming kind of correct today. Where it is the money of the internet. It is a solution for sending money across the globe to people that where Western Union might not work, or bank wire or ACH may not work. And I just thought that was fascinating. So I started to get into, obviously the speculation side of it, but really the technology side of it. So, I was kind of early to the game with Solidity and learning about, blockchain programming. I remember Crypto.js was there for Bitcoin, but it never quite was the silver bullet that, smart contracts and Solidity are today.
Right. And for all the newbies out there, Solidity is the main coding language that is for like the Ethereum blockchain and a couple others. And again, with you being in the coding space of it and understanding how the underlying technology blockchain works, I guess you saw this interesting opportunity to where energy could come into play. So tell us a little bit about Energy Ledger. Like, what is it and what are you essentially trying to accomplish with it?
Well, yeah. So Richard, what we've done here with Energy Ledger is we've patented the idea of having oil on the blockchain to kind of substantiate supply chain, where blockchain public-private keys are each denoting a container of oil in a company's supply chain. And then they can take that data and then that becomes valuable as well. So knowing where the oil is, knowing where it's being stored can ultimately help us in a mission to, kind of take this data and start analyzing ways that we can start becoming more efficient with oil, become more, environmentally friendly and start transitioning to renewables, which, obviously a data-based currency like Energy Ledger could eventually come to kind of proctor the data for as well. So yeah, that's in a nutshell, what we patented, what we're going out there and doing. And these companies, they all come together every year in usually September for Blockchain Oil and Gas in Houston. It's a really great conference, run by Energy Conference Network. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity to communicate these ideas that we're having to these companies, because we're really the only company in the space doing this right now and taking this kind of, taking this undertaking and really running with it.
So let's unpack it a little bit. So fortunately, I have a little bit of background in oil and gas and energy. Nice. Shout out to Tulane. And so a couple of things. Is this going to affect upstream, midstream, or downstream? And for all those who don't understand like what that is, let's kind of unpack that a little bit. And then also, what are the current practices in oil and gas? Like, why does it matter to be able to get all of this data inputted into blockchain? Like, are they not just putting it in computers? Are a lot of people still going by paper? Let's talk about that.
Well, yeah, that's really interesting. So, with the upstream, midstream, downstream, we're looking to really start from the upstream and then move to midstream. And then eventually, when the product is really complete and it's working at an enterprise level, be able to make it so our currency is redeemable, so make a data-backed currency, from the data of, oil and gas transit, to upstream to midstream. And the same currency that these big players are using, smaller, individuals could use this, to potentially pay for, a charging membership for their vehicle, or even for gasoline, or, power for their home. And also ultimately be able to use IoT devices to potentially even earn this currency. So, for instance, putting up solar panels or, installing pollution sensors could really be the mining of the future. And it could be a lot less rigid than the GPU and ASIC mining has been in the past. So.
Got it. And to break that down real quick, so upstream is the oil rigs that are out like in the Gulf of Mexico that are pumping all the oil. Midstream are the refineries that it's brought to so that it like makes it ready to go. And then downstream is when you go to oil and like the gas station and pump it into your car. So what you're saying is basically you're going to be able to use Energy Ledger to document how all this oil and gas is being pumped from upstream to midstream, and that's valuable. And tell us more about like why that is valuable and being able to document that more precisely.
Well, it's really valuable from an ESG perspective. So that's environmental, social, and green tech. And basically, being able to, take a look at this data and be able to paint a picture of, okay, where is this waste happening? Where's the most carbon being produced? There are several different kinds of fuels that, crude oil can get refined down into. Some examples are, gasoline. We all know gasoline. There's kerosene and naphtha, and these all have different industrial uses. And some of those even end up creating plastic. As we know it. But by looking from the very beginning of the life cycle, so that's an operator, a driller, producing oil. A lot of these, these operators are sharing kind of the same problem that I know farmers share too, is they're doing some of this on paper. There's a lot on computers, but a lot of it happens on paper. There's kind of a broken system where, data does get tracked by some organizations and, they have to keep their profit margins up. But more than anything, what matters at the end of the day for, I think the largest operators out there, we're talking nation states, and, giant corporations like Exxon, Chevron, ConocoPhillips, Halliburton, their bottom line comes from, if the price of oil is low, they'll just overproduce at any cost, to keep the numbers up for the quarter. And that's what happened last year in 2020. There was just so much overproduction, with the oil glut and the collapse of the price of WTI, that everybody in the whole world rushed to just overproduce to try to meet their bottom line, and there wasn't enough storage above ground. And instances like that's just one area where, having data to show and help predict ahead of time, we're going to hit a storage bottleneck right here. So we have to cut production. Cutting production is going to help more than increasing production. And that it stands true from an environmental standpoint as well. Cutting production and potentially raising the price of oil by the laws of mercantile commerce would dictate that there are higher gas prices, and then higher gas prices would dictate that more people who are buying new vehicles are going to opt for electric cars. And that's the world and market that I want to try to create for, with this is, something that incentivizes people to, use IoT devices to, find out more about pollution downstream and find out more about, really the end uses of oil and gas, that could, and, also other things like, solar panels, being incentivized to create electricity and sell it back to the grid instead of just like using electricity like mining does for Bitcoin and Ethereum with the GPUs and ASICs. And then, on the other side of things, I want to incentivize operators to really, see, hey, there is a reward in cryptocurrency and they can make the same amount of money or more off of less oil. There's an incentive to cut production and you start moving to the next paradigm for energy, which is probably, I would have to say, going to be nuclear, solar, And I'm sure that there are many other great sources as well, but I think the nuclear and solar will be the most prominent in the decades to come. So.
Right. And thank you for spending time on breaking all that down. I want to kind of bring a couple of things back. So first, I want to go and explore the tokenomics of kind of like your token, right? So now when people think about Energy Ledger and they want to use the token, now is this for your everyday consumer, your retail investor, or is this more for an established corporation who it would make more sense for them to be using this? Like, let's talk through that.
Well, what we're kind of doing here is, we obviously released the token, ELX token. And basically, I think there is around, I think 135 million circulating right now. And then there's like a 10 million drip every 6 months that we kind of use as our, our budget, to fund the project and, keep development going. And what I see is, that's a very much consumer facing thing. It's something that faces, average people and people who are interested in the project and interested in the patent and interested in the technology. And on the other end, we're working on our product, Energy Ledger Enterprise. And if you go to energyledger.com, you can basically see a demo version of this. We're moving right along with it. And our idea is you have obviously downstream people and you have, people that will just by nature consume gasoline. They'll be consuming energy products just by the nature of the American lifestyle and really the modern lifestyle. And then on the other end of things, we have, these big corporations that we're building Energy Ledger Enterprise for to be able to track their supply chains more efficiently and bring value to the whole ecosystem at large. And that's where we want to meet in the middle at some point and be able to, obviously be providing data to the end consumer, showing that there is, because there's a lot of people who are very shareholders that are unhappy with, I think Royal Dutch Shell was one they were very unhappy with. The shareholders there kind of started a domino effect at Exxon and Chevron, where people were unhappy that these companies just greenwash their mission and they say, oh yeah, we're reducing emissions, but it doesn't happen. And this gives those same companies the ability to walk the walk and show people that they're walking the walk and create a lot of value in the process through, through this token and the data that travels with the transactions.
And something else that I think is a very big key component of this, because it's on blockchain, everything is very open. With blockchain, because it is a ledger that you can go back and trace, you can really see, are people doing what they're doing? You don't have to look at their claims. You can go and look at it, which it allows for way more transparency. And even just from a lot of how organizations are going for more transparent ways to look into the companies, this is going to help solve that challenge as well. So yeah. I think that, go ahead.
Well, I just see it as, it's great that you bring all those points up, because what I see is promises kept from these companies. If they make a promise, they can show people they're following through on it. And that's going to go 10 times further than, a flashy, graphics on the quarterlies or whatever, being able to just show people the data and then having them be able to work off of that data and build, new solutions, that are kind of in demand by the market. It's just incredible, because the problem that we have, I think one of the biggest problems in blockchain is, the overconsumption of electricity. I do think it's blown out of proportion, but it is there. And I just think it's like, why don't we just flip it on its head and we produce electricity and reward people for producing energy, whatever form of energy, and make it, practical to track almost any form, whether it's oil and gas or solar. But I think the most important thing is working backwards from the oil and incentivizing, well, hey, we can use less and less of this and we can get more out of it. Because a statistic not a lot of people know is that 80% of the oil that comes out of the ground that's refined to gasoline or kerosene or naphtha, it's wasted and it ends up in our air. And we end up breathing that in, some of these big urban metropolises. It's, the smog in LA is awful. I mean, anywhere you go where there's many cars running, it's just, kind of a bad air quality that, permeates for miles. And, we can kind of start toning that down, really. And I think that's the biggest thing. So
it seems there's a ton of benefits, obviously, with bringing energy to the blockchain. But let's talk about why now and how is this going to go into the future. So how is this going to help as we kind of go into this next phase, or how is Energy Ledger going to help lead to the path of bringing this industry into crypto?
Well, yeah, I think the number one way that we're going to lead them there is, we started this kind of 3 years ago conceptually, in about, early 2018, I saw that there was this problem. I saw that there is a huge amount of monetary value in oil and gas. Every year their gross revenue is around $2 trillion. That's more than everything in crypto today, just hitting every year in gross revenue for the oil industry. And I saw that, they had this problem where, they can't really relate to the younger crowd. They can't really relate to even their own shareholders because they have to keep their bottom line up while still, delivering energy that everybody demands, a lifestyle that everybody demands. And I see a way where the blockchain stuff, basically, the problems ended up happening exactly as I saw. Oil went negative. I saw that happening back when I started this. Oil went negative last year, and I didn't think that could happen. I thought we could see zero. I didn't know we could see negative 38. And then the other problems that started to happen are, there was a huge hack on Colonial Pipeline, where, basically a group went into this pipeline software, which is very similar to Energy Ledger Enterprise, mind you. And, this is a centralized software, and there were centralized points of failure, and they hacked it and they put ransomware on it. Somebody clicked on an email that I guess had some pretty, girl in it or something like that. And they clicked on it and it installed ransomware on the whole system. And this ended up, shutting down the pipeline on the entire East Coast, causing a national emergency. And it's because of a centralized system. These issues that I envisioned started to arise and come to the surface. But the biggest issue of all of them is really, how are we going to use less oil and get the same, effect? Because it's not going away. And I'll tell you, for one thing, in the developing world, internal combustion engines really aren't going to go away for probably 60 to 80 years. I mean, if you go and, I was recently in Cairo, in Egypt, doing some, kind of blockchain evangelism. And one of the things I noticed is they have cars on the road, they have VW buses from the 1960s, the first gen ones still on the road because they're very easy to fix. And the same stands for Mexico. They love the VW Beetle because they can just keep fixing it. So getting the developing world off of internal combustion engines, it could be the better part of a century that it takes to get them, using an electric car or finding an alternative. And the solution is to find, an economic reason to switch, but also make our vehicles more efficient in the next 10, 20 years to, accommodate, basically the continued need for oil and gas. And the reason is, we're going to keep using this. We're going to, need to be more efficient with it. And while we keep using it, we don't need to be wasting 80% of the energy generated from it. So,
right. So it's almost like a 2-for-1 of energy efficiency, making sure more of it's being used, but also removing some emissions from the world and helping with a ton of things that are contributing to global warming in the world. So it sounds like you have a wrap of a ton of different elements of why this is crucial and essential right now. For the person that's kind of hearing this and they're like, well, this sounds cool. Like, what can I do to get involved? So if someone's hearing this right now, they're like, this sounds cool. What are some next steps that they can take to learn more about Energy Ledger?
Well, something that would be really wonderful is if you, check out our website, energyledger.com. You can follow us on Twitter at energy_ledger. And we also have a wonderful Telegram community. I think it is called Energy Ledger Official. It's pretty easy to find if you just search it in Telegram. And there's just a lot of great people in there that are really kind of well-versed in our mission and well-versed in our documentation. And, you can find all that on the website, but hearing it all from other people, I think is the most important thing. And also, I put up videos pretty often. We're doing a workshop on Friday, kind of a sneak peek. We're doing a workshop Friday that has to do with IoT sensors and how these could be the mining devices of the future in many different contexts. But this specific sensor is a pollution sensor. So basically showing, that eventually someday we want, the pollution in the air to reflect, them cutting the drilling, them slowing down drilling, it should result to less pollution in the air. And, being able to reward people with tokens for setting up these devices, similar to how GPU mining work, is the, most important next paradigm of this project after Energy Ledger Enterprise. So that's, kind of a really cool sneak peek thing. And all of those resources are great, to learn more about us.
For sure. And we'll make sure to include those in the show notes. But man, I really appreciate you sharing all that knowledge with us. But before we wrap up, I always like to ask 2 fun questions. The first being, if you could take all the information that you have learned right now and you can impart 2 to 3 pieces of wisdom to yourself when you first got started in this space or first got started on this journey, what would you tell yourself?
I would probably tell myself, to have started earlier on this, because I think it would have been, this is something, I kind of got started with Solidity programming early. And then one of my biggest regrets is maybe not being one of the first people out the gate, who had built a product or, some sort of token or company around this. It did take me a little bit longer, but I got there. So I do wish I wouldn't have just approached it from an investing standpoint. I wish I would have approached it from a technology standpoint a little bit deeper. And, I wish Energy Ledger would have started 5 years ago. So that's probably the number one thing that I would tell myself if I could go back.
For sure. And that's a good one. It actually comes up a decent amount. So basically everyone that's listening, as you know, if you hear something that it connects with you and it's making you want to do movement, the reason that we bring on these amazing thought leaders is so that you can have a way to learn about something new, but then also have action steps, things that you can start doing to make sure that you take action. So we do not encourage you just receiving this information. We want you to gather it. We want you to have it. But once you feel like you're in a good spot, make sure you're going and taking those first actions so you can start to become more and more involved in this beautiful space that is crypto. But Garrett, as we kind of wrap up here, man, what is a final thought that you want to leave with all the listeners?
We're at an extreme deficiency for developers in the crypto space. There's not a lot of developers, but there's a ton of enthusiasm. And over the years, I found, numerous tutorials and whatnot. I'd love to give a shout out to DApp University on YouTube. It's probably some of the best tutorials, and Gregory is a great teacher. If you want to learn more about, smart contracts and then, React, JS, Web3 front-end development, you should totally check out these tutorials. And, who knows, there might be a job for you at Energy Ledger, because we really need you right now, devs. So, I'll leave you with that, and, never back down from anything in the software space. It's easier than you think. So
awesome, man. That's a great final thought. And for all those who are curious and want to learn more about these development opportunities, that is a great resource. We'll make sure to share that in the show notes. But again, if you look at all the development work that's out there, some of the best paying jobs in the industry right now is in blockchain. So not a bad thing to go and look at if that's something that piques your interest. But man, I appreciate all that information. What are ways that people can connect with you if they want to be able to learn more information?
Probably the easiest way is if you want to connect with me personally, LinkedIn above all. I will also, just for kind of people that are watching this, I'm speaking it, but it's probably not a good idea to type it somewhere, but you can email me at william@energyledger.com and let's start a conversation. I'd love to hear from you. And it's, wonderful to meet new people, get new ideas, and, see how we can change the world of energy and, reduce pollution together. So.
All right, perfect. Well, I really appreciate all your time today. And of course, for everyone listening, stay cryptocurrent.